As some of you know, I led a workshop at the end of December that was all about sort of letting go of the rejection and the ways that we harm ourselves and turning to embracing, and how we can, how there are certain practices that we can use to support that turning. And I have just a story. It's not my story, but it's a story from a book called Radical Acceptance by Brach. Marilyn had spent many hours sitting at the bedside of her dying mother, reading to her, meditating next to her late at night, holding her hand and telling her over and over that she loved her. Most of the time, Marilyn's mother remained unconscious, her breath labored and erratic. One morning before dawn, she suddenly opened her eyes and looked clearly and intently at her daughter. "You know," she whispered softly, "all my life I thought something was wrong with me." Shaking her head slightly, as if to say, "What a waste," she closed her eyes and drifted back into a coma. Several hours later, she passed away. Can you imagine spending your entire life going through, operating in the world with this sense of unworthiness about you? And I can, I can certainly, because I feel like I have spent the better part of my life feeling like in some way I didn't measure up. I wasn't as smart as other people, as attractive as other people, as likable, as funny, just anything, right? And just operating, especially in my younger years, from this sense of lack, the sense of something missing. And I think we can all relate to this sort of sense of something missing. And it's all different for each of us, fill in the blank of what way we feel unworthy. It really turns us against ourselves, right? And we begin to reinforce that sense of unworthiness because we don't then have the courage to operate in our lives from a sense of authenticity, from a sense of who we really are, what we really want. We start to mold ourselves to other people's expectations. We start to pursue things that we think will make us happy or make us accepted. And all of these things move us away from ourselves. And they are either big or subtle ways in which we reject who we really are, who we're put on this earth to be, who we can be, our quirkiness, our weirdness, the ways in which we're distinct from other people. Those are often things that we reject about ourselves. So the rejection can start young, it can be very deep, it can be subtle, and it can be big, it can be obvious. So how do we start to accept ourselves? And I want to talk a little bit about acceptance. And acceptance is one of the pillars of mindfulness. And acceptance, I feel like the way that we typically associate with that word in our culture is this through this sense of acquiescence, of just like, okay, I'll accept it. There's a sense of, not really wanting. It's not an embracing, it's just an acceptance. But rejection is like a closed fist, right? There's no room for anything. It feels very solid, it feels blocking. Sometimes you can even feel it in your body, the sense of a lack of flow or something's blocking something. I often feel it in my chest. But acceptance, it's not a giving in or giving up. It's not a condoning necessarily or advocating. It's really it's a loosening and an opening to what is happening right now in the moment. So it's actually, I think, in the felt sense of it, is actually quite neutral, although I think we normally think of it as being often a negative thing or something that we have to do or something we resist into. So I like to think of resistance, right? Rejection as being like a tense, a clenched fist. And as we begin to soften to the allowing of what is happening in the moment, it begins to kind of loosen the fist a little bit, you know, a little bit. And it doesn't have to go, we don't have to go from, seeing the rejection and like with open arms saying, oh, it's okay, you're here, It doesn't have to be that right away or ever. It can be just a loosening of the grip of the fist, making a little bit of space where we can kind of, something else can start to fill the space. So it's really a softening. It's not a celebration of a rejection or something like that. So in turning that rejection into a way of being able to open ourselves to embracing who we really are, to embracing the things that make us unique, to embracing the talents that we have that we can contribute to the world. And I think sometimes in our society, we think it has to be huge, It has to be like like we're Beyonce up on the stage and everybody loves us and we have millions of people at our feet like clamoring for us. But what we can offer to the world doesn't have to be that. For us to feel, at peace with ourselves, in alignment with who we are, to know that we are contributing from our authentic self and that we're starting to feel that in opening that vibration of ourselves to the world, that we're starting to attract the kind of people that support that, right? That look at us and say, oh my God, that thing about you is so amazing and unique, and I love that about you. And it could be the thing that you've maybe rejected about yourself your whole life. So it's important to understand that it's possible for us to move from that sense of rejection and into a softer place where we turn our awareness inward and we begin to be with it. And recognizing that we're rejecting is the first step. Because often the rejection, when it's subtle, it's not something we're looking directly at, right? It's not right in our face. Sometimes it is, but often the little rejections that pile up over a period of time that really keep us kind of constricted, they're like off in the periphery, Like we kind of know they're there and we kind of see them. Sometimes they're like a tape in the background, like this recording in the background that's just playing over and over again. That's subtle. That's feeding into this belief that we have. And we kind of know it's there, but we kind of push it away because we don't want to deal with it, right? We don't want to believe it. It can be tricky sometimes, like a little trickster, like, oh, I'm telling you this thing, but as soon as you turn, I turn and disappear. So recognizing that we're having it is really important. And that just kind of involves us, when we notice it, even in a small little way, we stop and say, okay, in this moment, I am criticizing myself for this thing. I am berating myself for that thing. I'm feeling small because I'm thinking that I can't do this, or I had this failure, so I feel bad about myself and I want to retreat, I want to back off, or I want to give up. Whatever the rejection might be, it might be about accomplishments, it might be about a relationship, it might be about our relationship to ourselves or our bodies. But recognize we're having it and then feeling how it feels. It's so hard because we don't want to feel it. Understandably, because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good because we're making an enemy of ourselves. So when we're feeling it, when we're in the rejection and we recognize we're doing it, and then just allowing ourselves to stop for a minute and feel it. I've been doing this a lot in the last couple months. Like, okay, I'm feeling this, and in my body, this is how it feels. And identifying the actual sensations within the body, not associating it, not attaching those labels of rejection and unworthiness to the feelings, because that's usually what we do. We skip all the steps, right? And just go straight to associating the feeling with not good enough. But when we stop ourselves and say, okay, how does this feel right now in my body? okay, it feels like there's a lump in my chest, or I feel my chest constricting, or I'm having a hard time breathing, or I'm feeling very small, or, whatever it is, the actual feeling of the body. And can I be with it? Can I be with it? And that switch to bringing awareness and attention to that feeling of unworthiness is huge, because it's compassionate. And sometimes it's the first step in bringing compassion to that experience, to the awareness of the rejection that we've been giving ourselves, the feeling of unworthiness that we've been believing about ourselves all these years. That's the first step in bringing the compassion, is saying, okay, I see what's happening right now, and I'm going to be with it. You're worth being with. Just like if a friend came to you and they're feeling bad, you're not going to be like, sorry, I'm not dealing with this. You're going to say, well, tell me what's going on. How are you feeling? You're going to open yourself that compassion. And then once we're kind of being with it, we're allowing it to be there. We're kind of, giving it a hug, so to speak. We can start asking ourselves, what am I believing right now? What do I believe to be true in this moment that is making me feel this way? And this is where we can start to really understand and start to pull apart the emotion from the belief. Because it's the belief, really, that it's real, but it isn't true, right? I like to use that terminology a lot. It's feelings, it applies to feelings quite a bit. Real, but not true. And once we can start to really sit down with that, this is sort of the investigative part of this, where we start to really go underneath all of these conditionings and get to the bottom of it. What am I believing? Oh, I'm believing that because I'm only 28 years old and I haven't become CEO of a billion-dollar company, that there's something wrong with me, right? That I'm not accomplished enough. Or I'm believing because, look, I'm getting old and now I have these wrinkles, that I'm not valuable because I don't fit the mold of beauty anymore. I'm losing value because I'm aging. Do I really believe that about myself? Of course I don't. So where is it coming from? So this is a really powerful exercise. And it's not always easy to do. It's not always something we are able to do in the moment, but often we can if we allow ourselves to stop. And then we can, once we really get below that and understand the belief, we can ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I need in this moment to nurture myself? So I don't, often we believe things we don't really believe, right? They don't align with our values. And that's part of where the tension and that sort of aggressiveness comes from within us. Because our internal wisdom knows that that does not align with our values, knows that just because we're aging doesn't mean we're any less valuable, or just because we haven't hit some random, goal for our career, that doesn't mean that we're not valuable, or that we don't still have something important to contribute to the world. And the things we tell ourselves, they matter. They're important. There is a book called The Messages of Water. It's by this Japanese scientist who did an experiment where he took he had an experiment of water where he gave it messages, different types of messages, and then freeze it. And what he showed in this experiment is that the water that was given messages of encouragement, love, compassion, they made beautiful crystals. Of course, they aren't all the same because they're always different. But the ones that were given negativity and aggression, they didn't form crystals, or the crystals were very misshapen and sort of deformed. And I think this is a really beautiful illustration of, if we ourselves are 60 to 70, 75% water, and we're constantly internally telling ourselves how we aren't measuring up, if we're constantly berating ourselves and giving ourselves negativity, course, we feel it emotionally in our body, but our body's holding on to that as well, in the form of its being and its molecules and its all of the stuff. I'm not a scientist, but I can feel it in my body. So just something to think about. When you begin to start feeling these negative things about yourself, you're speaking these negative things about yourself, thinking about how it really elementally affects us within our bodies and kind of lodges itself in there so that we even pass it on to later generations. So let's go ahead and have a sit. And I invite you just to come into a comfortable posture, supported, but not striving or tensing. And you're welcome to close your eyes or have a soft gaze about a foot in front of you. We'll begin by taking in 3 deep inhales and exhales at your own pace. And then just allow your breath to come into its natural rhythm. Begin with just a quick body scan to bring our awareness into our bodies and allow it to really settle. So just bringing your awareness to the top of your head and allowing it to gather there, sensing the top of your scalp, maybe the hair, temperature of the room. Maybe you feel a slight breeze from the heating. Just gently allow your awareness to travel down the length of your head, over your forehead, over your eyes, and just notice if there's any subtle tension in the muscles around your eyes. Let it soften. And continue scanning down over your nose, cheeks, mouth. Just pausing momentarily at your jaw, checking in there. Noticing if you're holding or clenching your jaw, if you're feeling any tension in the muscles. And if so, on your exhale, just let it go a little bit. And continuing down over your neck and into your shoulders. Pausing here again just to notice if you're holding any tension. The muscles feel a little tight. You might need to just adjust your posture slightly to let it go. Perhaps let your head angle down a bit more to loosen the muscles there. And then continue scanning down for your chest and your upper back, down your torso, settling for a moment, checking in with your lower back to see how it's feeling, if there's any tension there. And continuing down into your hips, Noticing the feel of the cushion below your seat, moving down your thighs, over your knees, over your lower legs, and resting your awareness in your feet. As you allow your awareness to gently rest, just notice how the feeling of the cushion beneath your legs and your feet feel. Notice the pressure on your feet as they are between your legs and the ground below you. Just notice how that feels. Without judgment, without expectation of how it should be. Just noticing. Now begin to slowly increase the sphere of your awareness, allowing the feeling of the feet and the cushion to be there while we also begin to include the sensations of other parts of the body. Perhaps slowly expanding to include the feeling of the seat on the cushion, the feeling of the hands on the legs or in your lap. Expanding further, if you can, to include the feeling of your back, the support the muscles in your core is giving your body. Expand further, if you can, to include the feeling of your neck, of your upper back, your jaw. And finally, if possible, expanding to include the sensations of your head, your face, perhaps the feeling of the air on the tip of your nose. Imagining that you are enveloped in a sphere of awareness, a bubble, where only you sit, where nothing else exists, but the way your body feels in this very moment. Just allow yourself to breathe here for a few moments. You may notice from time to time your mind demands attention, presents you with something to occupy itself. If that happens, that's okay. There's no failure. The mind is meant to do what it does. Just notice if it happens. Give it a generic label, something like thinking, planning, whatever it may be, without getting hooked in the story. And gently bring your awareness back to your body. Allow yourself to settle again. I invite you to bring some way to mind that you often feel you reject yourself. Nothing too traumatic, something sort of commonplace. And as you allow this rejection to sort of come to mind, I invite you to open to the feeling of it. How does it feel in your body? Without getting too drawn into the story of it, just kind of bringing that feeling into the body. Noticing where it settles. Noticing what feelings it brings up. What sensations arise along with this rejection. Just allowing the body to feel, to sense it. Just giving it our attention. Allowing it to be there in the body so we can know it. If it feels overwhelming or too much, just let it go. Perhaps moving away from it and allowing some space, then coming back to it. And as you are making room for this feeling, this sense of maybe unworthiness, rejection, I invite you to just sense what belief is underneath it. What are you believing in this moment? And again, allowing the answer to come into your body without engaging the thought process too much. What are you believing? And then just ask yourself, what do you need? What, how can you support yourself? How can you nurture yourself? Is the belief true? Sometimes it can help to place a hand on your heart to extend further compassion to yourself. What do I need? Not in an analytical, doing sort of way, but allowing the answer to come from your body. Now I invite you to settle back into your body, letting all of that go, taking in 3 deep inhales, 3 exhales at your own pace. Just let your awareness settle once again in your body. And notice if anything has shifted. If your body feels different or if it doesn't. Just noticing what's happening right now in your body. Nothing to judge, nothing to strive for. In the final moments of this meditation, I invite you to place your hand on your chest over your heart if it feels right for you. Maybe take in a deep breath. Feel the care this gesture extends to yourself. And offer yourself gratitude. Gratitude for making space in your day, for following through on a commitment to listen to yourself, to make yourself a priority, and to know that being and listening is just as important as doing. I'll close out this meditation, this poem called Awakening Now by Danna Faulds. Why wait for your awakening? Do you value your reasons for staying small more than the light shining through the open door? Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Now is the only time you have to be whole. Now. Now is the sole moment that exists to live in the light of your true nature. Perfection is not a prerequisite for anything but pain. Perfection is not a prerequisite for anything but pain. Please, oh please, don't continue to believe in your stories of deficiency and failure. This is the day of your awakening. When you're ready, you're welcome to open your eyes, come back into the space.